So when discussing Book of Mormon geography, the places these events in the Book of Mormon took place, we really need to start in Jerusalem. That's where I'm at.
I've come to Jerusalem to see if there are any archaeological sites that we can connect to the account of Lehi's family as found in the Book of Mormon. This is a place unlike any other. It's the birthplace of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, but also a place of continual conflict. The day I arrived, there were 6 rocket attacks reminding me of this struggle that has been going on for millennia. The fourth religion that I would add to that list of 3 is Mormonism. Even though Mormons are Christians, there are some key differences from mainstream Christianity, one of which is the belief in prophets, both ancient and modern. I'm here to search for locations that could tie us to the first prophet found in the Book of Mormon, the prophet Lehi.
When David was in here, 1000 BC, this is where he built his city.
To find out, I'm meeting with Bruce Porter, a scholar of Near East studies who has spent much of the last 40 years studying the scriptures here in Israel. Bruce takes me to a place where it all began. Down the twisted alleyways of Old Jerusalem, we wind our way to the site of an excavation that uncovered the remains of a gatehouse on the outer wall of Jerusalem. This wall was standing during Lehi's time, around 600 BC, a place called Hezikias Wall.
Right behind me is the wall of Hezekiah. It's sometimes called Hezekiah's Broad Wall. In 722, when the Assyrians conquered northern Israel and took them captive, many of the refugees from northern Israel came into Jerusalem. The city of David was not large enough to hold those refugees, and Hezekiah constructed a new wall around those refugees that enlarged Jerusalem considerably.
7th century BC Jerusalem was a place of conflict and war, just as it remains today. Although the threats back then were not from Palestinian extremists, but rather from the Assyrians to the north. In anticipation of the Assyrian attack, King Hezekiah made preparations by building a massive wall, as recreated in this city model. Ironically, today, Israel is constructing another massive wall to the east of Jerusalem, but this time to protect from Palestinian terrorist attacks. King Hezekiah was known as a great king because he also admonished his people to remember God and put their trust in him during these times. It was a campaign of physical defense combined with a spiritual revival.
The construction of this wall were the preparations for the attack of the Assyrians that were going to come later on, that Hezekiah knew was going to be there, which caused him to not only construct and reinforce these walls, but also caused him to dig what we call Hezekiah's tunnel to make sure that there was a water source inside the city.
In anticipation of the Assyrian attack, King Hezekiah made preparations, such as a tunnel cut through solid rock to access a spring outside the city walls. Bruce takes me deep underground to explore this man-made wonder that still has running water through it almost 3,000 years later. It's a place not for the claustrophobic. After it was completed, Hezekiah's Wall became a site of great importance to Book of Mormon events.
This wall, the foundation which is still remaining, was in place when Lehi's family lived here.
These are the same walls. The walls of Hezekiah's city are the same walls that were there when Zedekiah was king and when Jeremiah was prophet.
Thanks to King Hezekiah, the city was well fortified and they had a secure water source to outlast any siege. But it was this confidence that led many to reject the prophecies of the prophet Lehi, Jeremiah, and others, who preached that if Jerusalem did not repent, the city would be destroyed. The site of Hezekiah's Wall became the site of an even more important Book of Mormon event, an audacious covert mission led by Lehi's sons Lemuel, Laman, and Nephi.
Now what's really exciting is this wall not only was here during Lehi's time, but we have evidence here of a gatehouse. Now why is that significant? Well, if you remember, Laban was charged with 2 things. He was in charge of keeping the city safe, protecting the gatehouse with 50 men or so. He was also in charge of the brass plates. Well, right here we have evidence that this was a gatehouse. Now, if this was the gatehouse that Laban was in charge of, this would have been a place that Nephi came to obtain the brass plates. Nephi would have entered through this gate, found Laban, slayed him, posed as Laban, obtain the plates, and return to this spot. This would have been the inside the city where I am right now. The outer wall would have been right there, as you can see on that line. Laban and Lemuel would have been on the other side of that wall, hiding. And when they saw what they thought was Laban coming, they fled.
And it was from Laban, who was the guard of this gate, that Nephi acquires the records, the brass plates, the records of Joseph.
Now, what's so special and significant about this place? This is a place somewhere along this wall that Nephi took the brass plates out.
The brass plates, the records of Joseph that he takes to his father, that they carry in the wilderness with them and to the New World. It contains all of the prophecies, all of the records of the prophets from the Torah, from Genesis all the way down, including the prophecies of Jeremiah.
If Nephi hadn't done what he did in obtaining the brass plates, then his entire people for centuries would be in darkness, and we would not have the Book of Mormon today.
Hezikias Wall is a must-see stop for students of the Book of Mormon, for this is where it all began. Visiting these archaeological sites has been an amazing experience for me. I can now read the account of Lehi and Nephi's courageous acts and picture what it took to do what they did. There's a spirit here that brings these stories alive in a whole new way.